Open your eyes and look around you. Open your eyes and everywhere you see a city that keeps growing with the land.
Good morning, Bob. Welcome to Oklahoma City again.
Good morning, Jeb. Nice to see you. This is my wife, Nancy. Jim Carlisle, Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce.
How do you do? We'll make a wide circle around the city so you can see a few points of interest.
That whole period of the 60s and 70s, you know, that's sort of the emergence of our city, like all American cities, into kind of a more modern era.
As we flew over town, it certainly looked as if a great deal has been happening here.
And so the leadership of our city at the time recognized that and wanted to propel us into that new era. And as we have always had, we had the ambitions in the 1960s and in the 1970s to be a great American city.
Now here's progress I can recognize. When I last saw the Myriad Convention Center, it was just a shell. Looks like it's almost completed.
As a matter of fact, it's in operation.
When it opened in 1972, it covered a whole city block, and it was obviously much, much larger than anything we had ever had before, and certainly expressed our aspirations to be a great American city. It was also understood it was gonna host everything.
The Myriad was really our arena. It was our entertainment place. It was where all the big shows came. It's where the sporting events were. It was the centerpiece for all things entertainment.
And a lot of the myriad of activities that happened at that facility have now sort of been diffused across many different venues in Oklahoma City. That's a unique era, and it makes it a very unique and special building. Hence the name. I mean, that was an intentional choice. It became known as the Incomparable Myriad.
During chamber meetings, I remember it came up because I remember some of the other names that were not selected. We thought that was a perfect name. It just encompassed everything. A myriad of things, everything. I think it really helped sell it in terms of just being aware of what we have in our city. Nothing like the building. It was a gigantic step forward for the city.
It was impossible to live in this community between 1972 and really about 5 years ago and not have attended multiple events there. And I don't know that any facility will ever again quite have that same lock on our city's civic experience.
I think the beauty of the Myriad when it came was the variety of shows.
The Myriad was aptly named. It was envisioned that it would have a myriad of community activities, and for half a century, it had everything. Whether it's politics, whether it's concerts, whether it's sports. And then, of course, you just had an unbelievable number of community events. You had these national televised events, like the Stars and Stripes, hosted by Bob Hope, that put the Myriad on a national stage.
From the Myriad Convention Center in the heart of America, Oklahoma City, welcome to television's special annual salute to the 4th of July, the Stars and Stripes Show.
I was at church, believe it or not, at the First Presbyterian Church, and our minister at the time was talking about patriotism. And that was the time when Kennedy was assassinated and Martin Luther King was assassinated. It just wasn't good. I thought of this idea, and I went home and I called the Myriad general manager, asked him to find out these dates were okay when I looked at it. And we even got on the phone and started selling sponsorships to it before we knew what we were doing. About 200 sponsors quickly came aboard, and we were kind of off and running then. Fortunately, I was playing golf with my friend Don Klosterman, who's been general manager of the Rams. had me playing with Les Brown. And I got to be close to him, and he was the key to help me get Bob Hope and came to perform at the show.
Hey, you know I'm happy to be back here, ladies and gentlemen, with the annual Stars and Stripes show from Oklahoma City.
So things just happen when it's lucky, because that put us on the map.
76 trombones.
So it grew from there to Ed McMahon's and Doc Severinsen and Kate Smith and Dionne Warwick, our Oklahoma guys, Steve Owens and Billy Sims and Billy Vessels, along with Maine Joe Green and Johnny Unitas. So all those guys, all those people I'm talking about, were in that Myriad, enjoying that Myriad. Developed a lot of pride having facilities like that. There are very few places to do it where you had the light and the sound and all the professional things that we have. We had great people operating down there.
The first event I ever saw here was Boston. I was in high school, had a date, came to the show. It was a good concert. Attending the first concert in the place that I eventually came to work, it's kind of pretty cool. A position came open at the Myriad for electrician, and I thought, what the heck, I'll just put in for it. If I get lucky, I get lucky. Well, I got the job, and then it just seemed like the events and stuff, they just kept like getting bigger and bigger. You do NCAA wrestling, NCAA basketball, from monster trucks to Darryl Starbird's race on the arena floor, RV shows, concerts.
Every conceivable brand name in music from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s played at the Myriad. Everybody from Elvis to Garth to Vince Gill to Reba to Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Public Enemy to Queen.
I was in high school. I can't remember. I think maybe a sophomore, junior, maybe. Led Zeppelin was our band. I had long hair and enjoyed that kind of music. But it was announced that they were coming, and they just put out a big new live album, and the interest in the band was at an all-time high, and we were shocked that they were announced to come to Oklahoma City. And so when they did, it was job one. Where do we start camping out? How do we camp out before they camp out? It was just a great, great high school memory. I can remember that concert to this day. I can almost remember every song.
For that era, when it was really in its prime, everything was there. Of course, Red Earth was there for many, many years. FFA conventions.
Dirt events are always a challenge. I mean, we've done, in this old building, we've done everything. Well, we've done NFR, IFR.
I agree with you. Let's go to the bareback ride.
I think the hardest one in this building would probably be rodeo, because we kept all the livestock in the exhibit halls, and then we built chutes up and down the hallways to go in and out of the arenas, and then we'd rotate it back and forth, and every now and then those stall walls would get blown out, you'd have a loose cow running down the hallway.
You had the all-college tournament for many years. You had the Blazers and hockey.
When I first got here with hockey, it was made the old way. We used to have to lime the floor to get the whites. And then we hand painted all the lines and the circles and all the good stuff. The logos were all hand painted.
You had professional wrestling. I remember seeing Hulk Hogan wrestle there. You had obviously legendary NCAA tournament games there. The famous Bryce Drew shot.
Drew for the win! Gone! He did it!
Michael Jordan introduced Russell Westbrook into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame right there at the Myriad. And of course, the Blue, our G League team, the Blue, played there for many years. And Coach Mark Dagnalt and Alex Caruso worked together on that floor in the Myriad long before they would lead our Thunder to an amazing season in 2025. And of course, graduations. So many high school graduations were held there in the arena, including mine. I graduated from PC North there at the Myriad.
Not to get all sniffly and stuff, but it's been fun. been a blast being here. I don't think I'd trade it for anything else in the world.
It's going to be exciting. Let's get ready.
When I started, I wanted to be what I thought was a true career field called robotics engineering.
We've got robots moving in autonomous mode. 54, trying to get that coral up on top of their level 4 branch.
It turns out it really was all about the human interaction for me.
61. For me, I had a couple friends who were part of different teams in high school and invited me to go out to, I want to say it was the very first regional that was ever at the Cox Center.
Welcome to the Oklahoma City 2008 robotics competition.
And I just was hooked. The event, the other teams, just the atmosphere, everything was just incredible. And they always got onto us because we always had coffee. We always got onto us.
We'd sit here and hype the kids up. So we'd throw things over the partition back and forth, and they couldn't get through the glass, but we'd squeeze through. And then we'd sit there and rile the kids up until the doors open at like 8 o'clock.
It was my first year participating in First, 15 or 16 at the time. He was a volunteer at the time. I was in charge of Spirit, and so I was trying to get certain songs played on the speakers so kids could like get up and dance and we could interact, and it's fun. I kept bugging him about it. He kept going on, oh, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll see what we can do. Nothing ever came of it.
I remember vividly every time that there was a lull and silence or whatever it was, you could guarantee that when a team spirit needed to happen or the crowd needed to be picked up, even as a student, she was the loudest screaming person. But she wasn't just pumping up her whole team, it was the entire audience. I could see her in my mind vividly running back and forth with her flag for her team, back and forth across the stands, hyping everybody up. From the get-go, she was right there in my mind, the center of focus every single time, and I loved it. I absolutely loved her spirit. I was actually living in Hera at the time, and she was living across the world to me at that age in Edmond. And I didn't see a way that was a feasible thing. And so as much as I was drawn to her in those times and in those moments, it was just a thing where it was she felt outside of my reach to where I couldn't do anything about that. And so I never said anything, never did anything.
Yeah, I felt similarly too, because I was like, he just seemed so far away, and I was just like, as like a high schooler with no car, it's kind of hard. The long distance stuff is harder when you're a teen. And then like when we got into college, we just went separate ways. I would only ever see him at First events. And so like we just became like First buddies. He'd be the person that I would go look for at First events because I was like, I know David will at least be there and we'll be buddies.
The communication really only happened at the event. We looked forward to seeing each other one time a year. I really wish that I could say that I made the first move.
It was me. I made the first move.
But it was definitely...
It was 100% me. I was like, you know what? I'm acting on it, and I've waited long enough. We were sitting next to each other at a First event, and it was in between matches, and I literally just went and moved closer to him, and he kind of looked at me like, okay. It wasn't anything like crazy. He was just like, just move closer.
Suddenly she just scoots, and there was this physical touch all of a sudden in between both of us that it was okay, like this is that moment where our lives are about to take off.
87-11, already heading across the field.
And our volunteer coordinator, when we started dating, she was like, I knew it. 15 years ago, I knew it.
And everybody knew, she's right. Every single person knew. Not a single person was shocked, surprised, or anything. We walked into the room for the first time to an event, the two of us, and nobody batted an eye. Not a single person reacted. They were just, oh, well, all right, it's about time.
Once we started dating, this was it. This is him. This is it. This is my guy. Forever and always. Has been since I was 16. I just was 16 and didn't know it.
Yep.
My biggest memories, honestly, were in that building. I graduated high school. My sister's graduation was there. That building is where we became friends. That's how we met.
I can remember vividly exactly where I was standing and where she was standing. That memory is only, for the rest of my life, only ever going to be held in that building. I can't have that first moment anywhere else.
MAPS 3 approved a new convention center in 2009 that opened in 2021. And once that opened, now you had a new convention center. And really, there was no real purpose for the Cox Center / Myriad anymore. It was now secondary in every one of its possible uses. And so we as city leaders were trying to decide what's next. More than anything, I think we were probably looking at a few years of it just kind of being boarded up. And that's not optimal, obviously, for the city to have such a prime piece of real estate completely underutilized. During this time period of 2019-2020, a couple of Oklahoma City natives who had been in LA in the film business came back to Oklahoma City and they wanted to do film production here, Rachel Cannon and Matt Payne. And they came to me interested in this topic. And we'd had a pretty decent film business, but obviously there was a lot of room for growth. And they wanted to be at the forefront of that.
Rachel and I had an intuition that this would work, but I was a writer. I was a screenplay writer, She was an actress. We thought, hey, here's an opportunity to bring something new and exciting and energetic to Oklahoma City.
It kind of had everything you could possibly imagine for an ideal film production facility. We saw the potential, they saw the potential, their energy carried it through, but we worked together over the course of those months that followed to convert this into Prairie Surf Media.
There were all of these concerns that it wouldn't work, but it did. It would work as a facility, but would people actually come here to film?
Clearly the two most notable productions, again, that I think will really be remembered as propelling our city to another level in the film production business was Tulsa King's first season. I mean, you had Sylvester Stallone living in Oklahoma City for 6 months and shooting virtually every day at the Myriad.
Tulsa King was originally going to be called Kansas City King. We worked really, really hard with the State Film Office and a bunch of different folks to get them here. They were here within 6 weeks. You start seeing the trucks showing up. You start seeing these giant meeting rooms we have begin to turn into offices, and each week more and more people sort of came, and then you see kind of that first set get built. And you think, my goodness, this is really gonna work. We're gonna have a real movie studio.
And it's kind of amazing when you get behind the scenes and you see all the things that you think existed somewhere else when you watch the show that actually were happening inside of the Myriad. A street in Brooklyn, a hotel room at the Mayo, a bar that he likes to hang out in Tulsa. Those things didn't exist anywhere but on the floor of the Myriad. So that was a really consequential achievement for our city to get that whole season shot here. And then that was followed almost immediately by Twisters.
Twisters put Oklahoma on the map in a very, very good way. Amazing soundtrack, amazing visual effects, truly special movie.
So these were huge productions, obviously very high profile in the entertainment industry, and really put us on the map in terms of the film production business. Really, was a catalyst for a huge upgrade in our film industry here that I think we will now sustain.
The intention that we had from the very start was to really supercharge an industry, because we knew that that industry could have an effect statewide. We were able to do something really big. We were able to take something that was going to be a burden on the city and turn it into something good, something that the whole state could be proud of. I hope what happened here is that we were successful enough to galvanize the film industry's role in Oklahoma.
And it got away from him, slides to the near side.
I was born in Kansas, but I came to Oklahoma when I was 12, and I've been there. And went to high school at John Marshall, went to the University of Oklahoma.
Hey, Martino,
Suddenly over the PA inside the new Myriad comes,
"This is the first game ever in the Myriad for hockey, and an old voice has come back to make sure that he's part of it. Would you welcome back the longtime voice of the Blazers,
John Brooks." And man, there was all kinds of cheering and everything.
Gomes takes it away, walks in, shoots, scores! Pound Gomes, red hot!
From the drop of the puck to start the game, guys loved playing there in front of our fans. The enthusiastic fan that loved the Blazers, he or she couldn't wait for the game to start, and then when the game's over, they couldn't wait for the next one.
We started learning from that point on what the game was about. I will be honest, the aggression of the fighting was pretty much right up there, number one. That kind of pulled me in, and then learning the game was even better.
It was electric and it was fun. All the action. I mean, the fights, yes, but just because so fast, skating so fast and the puck moving everywhere, yeah, it was great.
You could feel every hit the guys took. You could feel everything in that building happening all at once.
There wasn't never anybody that went to a Blazer game that didn't want to go to the game. The Myriad was home to the Blazers, the players, the fans, the workers. Everyone enjoyed the atmosphere at the Myriad.
You ask anybody of my family whether they went to hockey with us or not about the Cox Center, they'll look at you and go, "What is that? The one at the fairgrounds?" And I'm like, "No." And it's just always the Myriad. It will forever be the Myriad.
The Blazers had one player that was perfect for AA hockey. He could have played as a third-line player in AAA, but he was a first-line superstar, and that was Joe Burton, who's in the Hall of Fame with me for the Blazers. And he captivated the league as the leading scorer, and he captivated the city, and fans began to pour. And by the end of that second season, you were looking at crowds of 9,000, 10,000, and then on special nights, if the Oilers of Wichita came to town, they might have 13,000 people in the Myriad. When everything's rolling in 93, 94, somebody came up to me and said, "I just got here." He said, "You won't believe it." He said, "There are people scalping tickets out there like mad. I saw some guy pay $200 for a ticket."
Other teams hated coming into the Myriad because of the fans, because of the team. There were cowbells, I will be honest. There were probably a lot of cowbells.
I don't mind a cowbell.
But there was, our voices were heard in the Myriad. It was our house, and we were going to make sure you knew that it was our house.
Some of the promotions we had were quite different. 4-H, FFA, giving away the steer and the goat and the pig and the sheep. I don't think anybody's ever done that on the ice before. And then we had bowling for turkeys, throwing turkeys down the ice and trying to knock over a bowling pin, and you won a turkey to go home with. I always thought that was pretty unique. And just overall, we had fun, and people had fun.
What really, I think, captivated everybody, it was almost like many of these fans felt that their nephew, their grandson, maybe even their son, had just moved into town and was a part of this hockey team.
A group of ladies would come in and furnish all the apartments for the players that were coming in to live, whether they were married or not married or whatever. The apartments were, beds were made, towels were laid out, fridge was full of food, flowers on the table. And they really helped these young hockey players and couples especially. I don't think there's any team that I know that treated the players via the Booster Club better than Oklahoma City.
Mom brought us in just as a family fun night, and then she ended up becoming part of the Booster Club, and then brought my sister and I in to meet the players, get to know the players, get to know friends that later became family. Mom would make it not necessarily a reward, but I had to have all my schoolwork done. My grades had to be C's or above. She really wanted it B's or above. If they were lower than that, I couldn't go see Trish and the girls. I couldn't go talk to any of the players that I'd become friends with. Alan Perry, Chris Laganis, Steve Simone would not sign an autograph. They would not take a picture. They would not do anything before they saw my report card. And it had to be not mom accepted, player accepted. On her marker at Graceland Cemetery in Edmond is a Blazer logo that will once again be there forever. That's how much the Blazers meant to my mom. There are 4 things on her marker: the Blazer logo, her kids, her grandkids, and her beauty shop. That's how much Blazer hockey is our family.
When the Blazers got into the playoffs and they got by the first round, the second, now they're playing for the title. And there was a feeling in the locker room. There was no one in that locker room in that final series that didn't know. I get a little emotional.
We wanted to make Oklahoma City happy. We wanted everybody to have a smile on their face, and whether they forgot about the bombing or an injury, if they happened to be in it or knew somebody, we wanted them to forget about what happened and look to the future.
When the time expired and everybody rushed on the ice, I think you know what the emotion was. And for a lot of those players, it was important to the Blazers that they did it for the city. And to have done it a year and a day after that tragedy was just, you know, a lot of us think there was a little bit of dust sprinkling down from up above on that one, for sure.
April 19th started out as a day of prayer at the Myriad building.
Mayor Norrick, Ron Norrick, he had a mayor's prayer breakfast that morning.
It was a day where faith played an important role in the Oklahoma City community with business leaders from all over our community.
When it was over, I went back to my office, as everybody did, and that's when tragedy struck.
And this is a live picture right now, downtown Oklahoma City. Robin, have you got some more information?
Just saying that it was near the YMCA, and apparently there are numerous injuries, just so you know that.
Initial reports.
I was working here at this station. I was a sergeant on B shift. You know, we had the TV on, and, you know, the news was covering it, and, you know, it was still on fire, and the smoke and everything, and we just thought, oh my God, this is tragic. Later that afternoon, our pager started going off. They deployed us, so we assembled at the academy, and they take us on buses over to Andrews Air Force Base, and we flew out.
I remember arriving, I can picture it totally today. It was about 11:30, close to midnight. The lights that were projecting onto the building, generators running, you know, the buzz of people happening, the smell of the concrete, the collapse, the fires that had taken place earlier. All of these things, none of us had seen something like this before.
I'll never forget taking the corner that first time. You know, we'd seen it on TV, but to see it up front, it was devastating.
When you think about the enormity of the situation and that we were literally in the bowels of this building, and we would spend 15 hours trying to extricate an individual while shoring up the building so that it wouldn't have a secondary collapse, and then removing that person, doing that multiple times in a shift, it really had a profound effect on everyone.
You know, we aren't tested in such magnitude in everyday life. But when this came about, Oklahomans rose to the occasion exponentially.
The Oklahoma Restaurant Association came to town for a convention 2 days before the bombing. Now, little at that time did members know they were about to help out in the worst tragedy on U.S. soil.
The morning of the actual bombing, we were going to start our second day of our food show. And basically when that bomb went off, we called all of our people together and we said, you know, we got to cancel this show. What do we do? And to a man, they wanted to turn it into a relief effort. So we had the cooking equipment, we had food, we started preparing meals, and within an hour, hour and a half, we had meals actually down at the bomb site.
The Myriad Convention Center was being run by just local citizens that took over the food convention, reorganized everything.
They had it set up after our first night, and you know, we didn't know what they meant when they said they're taking us back there. We got back, they had all the army cots set up, I mean, and they were comfortable, blankets.
It was remarkable to Kathy and me that people would be watching television, listening to the radio, and saying, we got to go down there and help.
I remember walking out from where we were sleeping into the big open space, and all these people were there from all over.
Barbers, free telephones so you could call your loved ones.
This whole area was all food. These were tables set up here.
And I think this, like half of the floor was the cafeteria feeding area, and the cooking was going on in the middle, and then the other half was all of the services.
Masseuses, there were people that could fix your eyeglasses or your contact lenses.
And on the tables were things people were bringing.
There's like the supply warehouse where you could get socks, underwear.
Anything.
Anybody would hear that there was anything that the USAR folks needed, it was taken care of.
So when we came in, the dorm room settings were all set up to where each cordoned off area, where it was one of these big rooms, or with conference partitions, they made a room as a dorm room for each of the task forces that deployed here.
People would come in from the community and leave poems and stuff on our bunks every night. They were there 24/7, and it was unbelievable. We never went without something to eat, even snacks. They'd put them on our bunks, and it really galvanized us as a team to see that support.
I would go down late at night, and at the changeover, I'd hand a rose to the rescue worker coming off site late at night. It was one of the harder shifts to come off of. It was cold, and the smell of death was pervasive, and it was dark, and it was rainy and cloudy, and it was hard. But to have it on your pillow when you get in, to where you're going to put your head down was really as if not more important.
One time after shift we came in, all the cots are made up. They have a pillow, a nice blanket. They're perfectly done. And there's usually a note or a letter, something, maybe a flower, a rose on the pillow.
They kept sending roses so that we could put a rose on the pillow of every one of the FEMA teams spending the night.
Somebody, and I don't know who it was, said something like, you know, the only thing that's not on, it's like going to a 4-star hotel, the only thing that's not on the pillow is a mint.
I said, well then let's put a candy on their pillow too, just so they'll feel like they're treated royally.
Literally the next night there were mints on the pillows.
The truth of the matter is, it was 1,000 acts of kindness by 1,000 different people that would say, why don't we do this, or why don't we do this? And
spontaneous.
It was very spontaneous. So we can show our gratitude for these people who had left their homes, left their loved ones, and who were emotionally challenged going through this devastation of rescue and recovery.
There was always something going on to be able to you know, take your mind off of what you were dealing with and give you some sense of normalcy.
Especially the kids' poems and the pictures.
We received thousands, really thousands of letters from children at the governor's office. And we wanted to share them because they were so uplifting. You know, through the eyes of a child are it's very different than through sometimes a skewed look through an adult's eyes.
Here were children 5, 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, some were in high school, that virtually every one of them said, we're with you. We'll help you in any way. Those are bad people who did this. We're praying for you.
It was the best thing. It really motivated us, you know, because here are kids that really don't understand, but they know enough to thank us for being there. And I think some of the older kids, like when I say that, maybe 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you know, they process things differently than the kids in 2nd or 3rd grade. But, you know, they all had the questions of why. There was a poem that was written in the Daily Oklahoman, and the one verse in it, it kind of, in my opinion, it basically healed the community. It said, we may never know the reasons, we may never understand. No, this is not an act of God, but the will of mortal man. And they realized, I think, that, you know, God didn't actually let this happen. You know, it was mortal man.
A week, 2 weeks into it, we're having massive psychological challenges, heavy PTSD. I could see it in their face, right? I could see it. I could just see it, like we're sitting here right here in the convention center. It's where we're sleeping. I'm sitting on my cot. I'm looking over at my colleague, and he's just sitting there staring into the wall. And so it's time to get them out of there. What helped us immensely through that process, without question, was the love and affection from the community. I look forward to getting off of shift and getting over to the convention center to sit around. We had these big round tables that were there. They had them set up around, and we would just sit at a table. So first of all, it was always a hot meal when we got there, and then we would sit down and have dinner. And usually we'd sit down, and then a family would come over, or an individual would come over and say, can I sit and talk with you? We'd say, sure. And we'd just have a conversation. And it'd be like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? You know, it wasn't like, what did you see? Tell me about the building. It was more about you. How are you doing? How can we be of service to you? Have you talked to your family lately? Did you call your family? I celebrated my 35th birthday there, and I came back in from working a full shift, And there was these families. There was a family from Enid, and a family from Tulsa, and a family from Oklahoma City. And these women baked this big sheet cake. I had our logo on it, had Happy Birthday Mark. That was the essence of what I'm talking about. You wouldn't see that. I've never seen that before. That connection that happened between the people of Oklahoma and these responders that had come from all over the country. It created lifelong bonds. I can tell you I've been through many, many incidents in my time that I've not created lifelong bonds for, but I created lifelong bonds in Oklahoma City.
The people in Oklahoma are different. It was very heartfelt. They looked at you in the eyes, and they wanted to take care of you, even though they were in crisis themselves. So this is a very unique, I think, for all of us, that in the last 30 years have found ourselves in many places. There will never be another situation or an incident like this, where we have connected so much with the people that we're supposed to be helping, and they were trying to help us the whole time.
To walk out after a shift of working in the child daycare center and then going to the convention center and sitting with a family with kids there. And just hugging them. 30 years later, it's still very emotional. That was essential. I think without question, it got us through. It got us through those dark, dark days.
We loved them. We wanted them to know that we were very grateful for their courage and their sacrifice. But we decided when the urban search and rescue teams, the FEMA teams, were leaving, we would be there in the Myriad to say thank you for being here. You all have been great to come and risk your limbs and your lives for us. We really do appreciate it. And here I had made that very, sound statement, and this guy took what appeared to me to be a dollar bill, and he waved it in the air, and he said, "Hey, Governor, you know where this is?" He said, "No, it's not just any dollar. It is an Oklahoma dollar. It's the dollar I had in my pocket when I came. It's the same money I have in my pocket when I'm leaving."
Yep. Well, we didn't pay for anything the whole time we were there. He goes, "Your money is not good here. It's not good in Oklahoma." He was serious about it. I put this back in my wallet, and home I went, and I framed it.
As a responder, dealing with different disasters, not really used to seeing that, right? And it was the Oklahoma way.
And we all feel like this has a very unique and special experience to all of us compared to some of the other disasters that we've worked.
And just to have that support, it really increased our camaraderie, because it was good, but we were interacting with them too. And that just doesn't happen a whole lot on deployments, that I've been on, like in Turkey, Taiwan, Nairobi in '98. This was the only deployment that I've ever been on that had that community involvement and that support.
Well, everybody started calling this the Oklahoma Standard. We've been to other disasters where FEMA Urban Search and Rescue has been deployed, but nothing has come up to the Oklahoma Standard.
I think that the convention center became the hub of not just where we stayed, where we slept, where we showered, but the hub of humanity for this event, during this event. A place where we could all recognize that there was so much good while we were dealing with so much evil. That's what the Myriad Convention Center represented to us. It was the place where everybody came in and was there for everyone else.
I've done it all. We used to make our own tables here. We'd paint, change light bulbs, make ice, make insulated floor. Probably nothing we didn't do. To spend over half my life here, you know, to me it was always fun. Because then you could sit back when you were completed and you could tell if the people enjoyed it or not. And it always was kind of rewarding to me after the events and stuff to see the people leave laughing and carrying on and stuff.
I've been there hundreds of times. And just like everybody who's been alive in this era, the Myriad will always have a special place in my heart.
I've thought a lot about the evolution of the building and where we are downtown. I felt the tug of nostalgia. It represented so much, a real change in direction of our city.
Now we're moving forward into a new chapter, and it's going to be the home of an arena that is going to be something, I think, that another generation will think of as definitional to Oklahoma City.
And we've given a lot of thought and a lot of care to how we want to be the successor venue to that site, honor that site, honor what's transpired in that building for all these many years. And we'll do that. One way we're doing that I think is very cool is that the basketball court of the new arena will be placed precisely where the basketball court was at the Myriad. So kind of this spirit of the same location, especially for the primary use for the facility, is going to be right there at home. And so I think that's a nice tribute, and we'll always honor that location and that building and that history.
For another generation, a future generation, they will think of this new arena as one of those touch points in their recollections and memories of Oklahoma City. So it's fitting that that new chapter will be written on the foundation laid by the Myriad. And certainly as people look back on the history of this city 100 years from now, they'll point to this site as a place that maybe had many different chapters in its story, but for a very long time, probably a century by the time this next arena enters its new chapter, they will point to that site as a place that brought this community together in so many ways, and a place where many of our collective memories were formed.